Alabama coming off of a disappointing, lackluster effort and loss to Oklahoma heading into the Iron Bowl. We're going to talk about that on the All-American Report. So let's play the best open in podcasts and get this thing going. All right, here we go with the two-time All-American Mike Johnson. Coming at you from Atlanta. I'm Mick Gillispie.
Did anything happen since I last talked to you, or nothing? That's great.
Yeah, bro.
Let's talk about Iron Bowl.
Dude, I just look at the more I get away from the Oklahoma game, the more I just sit here and ask the same questions. You know, what happened? How do you go into these games against Oklahoma and think that it's like you don't have to try? I mean, I felt like the effort was terrible, dude. I mean, I think it starts there to me, but I want your opinion.
Well, I think that it's always tough for me to question effort because I see a number of guys playing hard. I think on the whole that you would say that. I think they were more amped up for the game than we were, right? I think that's kind of a fair assessment of that. I don't go into it saying, well, Bama's effort sucked. I just simply say you walked into a road environment where the home team was probably a little hungrier. I think hungrier is the word I would use. But I mean, look, man, you can diagnose it a million different ways. We came up short on just about every end that you can bring up. We didn't tackle well. We didn't throw well. We didn't execute well. Our game plan wasn't good offensively or defensively. I think the leadership failed in numerous instances. I think that Jalen Milroe as a leader failed. I think Kalen DeBoer probably would tell you that he failed numerous instances. So I would flip it around, Mick, and I would tell you this is the kind of game that it's even hard to come up with something you did well. And that's the frustrating part is that, you went into this game and you do so many different things way better than Oklahoma. And yet it seemed like the way we game planned it and or played it, we allowed them to take the things they do well and, exponentially, kind of impact the game. It was frustrating to watch. It really was. And this game to me, Mick, goes. We've had a couple letdowns this year, and you talk about the Vanderbilt. This game goes in a completely different category for me, and I'm curious how you feel about that because even when you were playing Vanderbilt, you were in it the whole time. It was kind of back and forth. You were, Milroe made one or two bad throws, but really he played decently well against Vanderbilt, and you lost by 5. Right? You're still scratching and clawing at the end. There's a sack fumble that kind of loses you the game. This game didn't feel like we had a shot the entire time. Even if you overturn the touchdown that Ryan Williams should have scored, I would okay. Like it didn't feel like we did anything well in this game, and so that was the frustrating part for me. I'm curious to get your take because I can diagnose it front to back and talk about position groups and game planning and coaching and everything else I saw. Bottom line comes down to there's nothing good about it. There's really not.
Mike, I'm going to be honest with you.
I love when you are.
We got our ass whooped from pillar to post. From the beginning, we were ahead. I was like, these guys just kicked our ass, and we're lucky that it's tied at 3. Now it's like, hey, maybe it'll be 6-3 at the half. But then they scored a touchdown. They dropped a trick play that should have been another touchdown. And then I felt like Milroe had his worst game. I want your take on the offensive line because they were in the backfield the entire game, but it feels like Milroe's not going to get you out of those situations. Milroe's running to me was awful. He's like, to me, now you might argue with me and you would probably know better than me, but I'm watching the hole is like straight ahead to the left. And then he's backing up and running around the block and away from where the opening is. Like, you go back and watch those 15 runs. The reason he didn't get yards is because it was like he was running backwards. I mean, you know what? There's 3 other guys that play that position. And if you don't get it done, somebody else is going to step up. I've been a fan of his. I still am. I still think he's a great athlete. But that performance to me, you're the leader of the team when you're the quarterback. That's why you get paid all the money. That's why when you have a quarterback that's good, you win. And when you don't, you don't. This isn't the Saban days where it was like, hey, we can win despite the quarterback. That's it. Right. Those days are over, man. So to me, I didn't like the intensity. I thought the game plan stunk. I'm watching that offense that Oklahoma's running. It reminded me of high school football because, hey, guess what, guys? There's no wide receivers because they're all hurt, so they're going to run the ball. And then it was just like, hey, if we just all run this way, the quarterback just run behind us and nobody's going to tackle him. Like it was like county high football. I swear, man. That's what it felt like to me.
10 men block so one can run. That's the high school flavor you're talking about.
Yeah, that's it.
And I'm with you. And I'll start with the offensive line because obviously that's my bread and butter. They didn't play well. I mean, point blank, they did not play well. I think Brailsford played okay. I think Booker played okay, not up to Booker standards, but he played okay. He's set a pretty high bar for himself, but you got to give a little bit of credit to Oklahoma's interior defensive line. I think they're probably a lot better than people realize. And we talked about the efficiency. You and I last week talked about their efficiency in containing the run. They're very good. It's like the one thing their team is good at.
Yeah.
Against the run. Their defensive run efficiency. Elijah Pritchett, and I've struggled with how to address this. He didn't play well. I mean, just point blank, he did not play well. He's got all the tools necessary. I know he's a gritty player, and I think from what I hear, his teammates and his coaches really like him. Didn't play well. The problem is, I don't know that there's not a situation where you go, man, you got to get somebody else. We saw the Wilkin Formby experience play out against South Florida. Now, what I will tell you is, as far as Elijah Pritchett goes, I wish that they would help him more. I wish that when he's struggling that you'd put in an Oots, a Dupree next to him, chip on the way out, use physicality, some of the other things that you can do. So many times this year, offensively and schematically, we've just put guys up to bat and said, okay, go win. That's not what offensive coaching is. Offensive coaching is putting your guys in the best situation for their skill set to be able to succeed. And we haven't done that offensively. And that's worrisome for me. But I think it's something that hopefully that Nick Sheridan and Kalen DeBoer are growing into, because I think that they don't quite have that depth of the relationship with some of these players on the roster. I think that it's still a lot of transition type of things. I think they're trying to get players to run their scheme. But how many times do you look back over the course of the last 20 years and you say, well, if this phase wasn't getting it done, then this phase could. If this guy, 2009 Iron Bowl, we couldn't get the run game going against Ted Roof's defense. Mark Ingram's out with a hip pointer or something. Trent was trying to get going. We couldn't get the run game going. Greg McElroy leads us on a 2-minute drill, to win the game. So many times the good teams that Alabama has had. Think about A.J. McCarron, the comeback against LSU. Think about Blake Sims. But then think about the complementary pieces around them. Derrick Henry and Jake Coker. Just go back. There's Najee Harris and Tua. We don't have complementary football right now. There's no two different ways to do it for us offensively. When it works, it's great. When Jalen can run, this offense is explosive. When he's going north and south and he's able to hit top 23 or 24 miles an hour, whatever it is, it's explosive. It's electric. It's exciting to watch. When we are asking Jalen to run and they're backing off their defenders and we're asking Jalen to run because, it's not a good look to throw the ball, it's bad. It's bad. We're running sideline to sideline. He is a good runner when there's not a defender in his face. Yeah. And I think that what I mean by that is you go back and watch LSU, hat on a hat, number of blockers, I can get the top speed, I can run away from everybody. When he's open field, one-on-one with a defender, it's bad. It goes all the way back, and you and I talked about it after the Michigan game last year. It seemed like a number of times he'd pick up 8 yards, and he'd need 2 more for the first down, and there'd be a defender right there, and he'd almost fall down.
Yeah, right. Right.
And it's frustrating. You and I have had this conversation all season about what Jalen Milroe as a runner. And I went to an LSU game saying this was one of the most pivotal games of his career. Yeah. Jalen Milroe as a runner. What is he? Because his numbers had stunk as a runner up until LSU. And yet you go in LSU and you rush for almost 200 yards. Like, okay, that's the guy. But then you see another game where he's having to make people miss an open field or outrun somebody or take on, a defender and kind of push them towards the first down. And it's not good. So I have a number of questions about what Jalen Milroe is at the quarterback position. We can talk about the tackle if you want. It was awful. There's no excuse for anything he tried to do on that tackle. I'm sure that Kalen DeBoer has talked to him about that. So I'm a big Jalen fan like you, but this game was I mean, it was a poster child for his struggles. It just was. I mean, there was nothing that he was doing well. It wasn't good as a leader. I hate how he undressed a number of guys on the sideline, his body language, his effort towards that tackle that I'm talking about, and really his play just as a quarterback. I thought it stunk. I thought the offensive line stunk. And we can kind of leave it at that. But I don't know that there's another way to diagnose it other than you have to find a better game plan. And you have to hope you do that pretty soon because Auburn's going to come in offensively with a very similar game plan to what Oklahoma just did to you. And
better players to do it. Yeah, and better players to do it.
Well, exactly. So you better find a way to get better in a hurry, or this is going to be a real sour taste in your mouth, headed into bowl practice or whatever you have going on. We're about and honestly, Mick, it's coming from the perspective that you and I always look at. What is Kalen DeBoer? What is this program? What is this head coach? What is this staff? We're about to find out a lot, in my opinion, about what this staff is, what this roster is over the next month. We're gonna start hearing the word opt out. We're gonna start hearing the word portal. We're gonna start hearing some of these words, but what key players are returning? What leaders are returning? What guys want to grow inside of the system and grow, their relationship with Coach DeBoer and the staff, or how many of them say, I don't like it. I don't like what's going on here. I think I want to go somewhere else. That's going to be a pivotal month coming up for Kalen DeBoer and the staff, and they need to figure some things out and make sure that they start that month on a really high note this weekend.
Yeah, this is a big game for not just the state, but for this program. And we'll get into that in a second, and we'll talk more about Auburn later in the week. But I had Catfish. My buddy Catfish, he's your buddy too, said that he feels like Milroe is selfish. He's selfish with the football. He doesn't want to distribute the rock, like on those read options. And he's so passionate about it. And he's like, I don't know why any running back would want to play with him because he always keeps. And it was like they just attacked him like knowing, hey, he's going to keep it. We're going to get him. I don't even know what that was. That's his opinion. He sent me a video of a lot of the run play options. I'm watching it. I'm watching Milroe run backwards, which I just don't understand. But at the same time, I'm wondering, like, do you look at it that way? I mean, you're a guy that knows football way better than both Catfish and me.
Well, selfish is a big word, man. When you talk about locker room, selfish is a big word. I've seen some of the reactions from some of his teammates. It doesn't scream selfishness to me.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing. Like, selfishness is a character word. Now, if Catfish wants to say, dude, he's bad at running the read option, can't make a read, doesn't look like he knows who he's reading.
Right.
Defenses are scheming his zone read because they know he has that bad eye discipline at quarterback.
Yeah.
That I can fall in line with because he's bad at zone read. There's no two ways about it. Yeah. He doesn't look like he knows who he's reading. And you can tell what Oklahoma's game plan was, Mick. It's, hey, let's charge the mess point. Let's get right into his face immediately, no matter what they're trying to do. And let's see if we can force him into a bad decision. And more times than not, that's exactly what they did.
Yeah.
And you and I said this last week on this podcast, Brent Venables didn't suddenly go to Oklahoma and forget how to coach defense. He just didn't. He's one of the better defensive minds in college football and has been for a long time. Just because he might not have the roster specifically on offense to back that up doesn't mean he just forgot. Right. So I think when you look at it from that perspective, there's a lot of things to be frustrated about. Selfish is a strong word for me. That's a character word. And I try to stay away from those until I have hard evidence. But if you want to go as far as to say he's bad at running the zone read, I can get on that boat with you. I can row that boat with you a little bit because it's not good.
Well, and when I think he says selfish, I'm thinking like playing basketball as a kid and the guy that takes all the shots. You know, Allen Iverson.
He's going to attack the rim. There's three guys at the rim, and he's running, reverse fake behind the back passes and throwing a layup. Yeah.
You don't give him the ball because you know you're not getting it back.
Ball. Yeah. No, man, and that's how it is. It stinks because I have such a high opinion of Milroe, the guy that's gutted out this coaching change. He's rallied the troops. I think a lot of guys stayed on board because the leader he is. He wears the C on his shoulder, and I think there's a lot to be said about that. I don't want to lose focus of. I don't want to start. I think when we go wrong is when we start merging. And this is inside the locker room thing. This is how I felt as players. When you start merging a guy's play with what his character is.
Yeah.
When a guy's not good, so you call him soft, right? when a guy, he didn't make the play that you wanted to make, so he's lazy. Or, you know what I mean? Hey, this guy posted an Instagram of he's at a restaurant with his friends. Well, you should be in the film room. You know what I mean? Like we start getting to a point where we merge it. That's where I get off. That's where I get offline. I think Milroe's playing hard. Mm-hmm. I think he's playing his brand of hard. Now, like I said a minute ago, the attempt at the tackle and then him jumping up and the body language, the talking to whatever receiver it was. I can't remember if it was K-Law or Jeremy Bernard. Jumping into their kitchen and kind of getting on them. That's not a leadership quality, I think, in the way he thinks it is. Right. And that's I've had these conversations with people, and you talk about what a leader is in college football. It's like, I would much rather see him put his arm around a guy and be like, that was garbage and you're better than that. Right. Rather than I'm going to, act a fool because I think I got made to look bad and, it is what it is. It's frustrating for me because I think he's better than what he's showing. And when I look at it from an O-line perspective, like I just showed you, I don't think they're doing a great job of putting this O-line in a position to succeed. We know that Elijah Pritchett has struggled in pass pro. Everybody in America knows it, dude. And that's the frustrating thing is because he's struggled, and that Milroe should not probably be a pocket passer, and that's not what the game plan is. And yet we continue down this path, Mick, of asking Elijah Pritchett to go out there and pass pro 30 times a game, one-on-one against a good D-line. And it's just frustrating. It's like, how many times do I have to bang my head on the wall before, somebody puts a pillow there? It just,
right.
It is what it is, man. But I just, this defense, it had some questions as well. I hated the defensive game plan, the depth they were playing at. It felt like they thought that we were going to see Mike Leach's air raid. Like we're playing off the ball, and we're at in Jackson Arnold. What did he have? 50 yards passing?
Yeah,
60?
right. Like the adjustment.
Like, dude, what do you think they're going to try to do to us? Like, why are you so far back?
Well, the adjustments aren't there, man. Like, there's games where the defense just doesn't adjust, and I mean, Kane Womack's had some good games, but he's also had some bad games. It just feels like the coaching staff around DeBoer are guys that just aren't SEC guys, just and it's like they went out and they got all his buddies, and that's fine until it's not fine, and it's not fine now because you're going into these games and we're not adjusting, man. I mean, how do you just sit there and let that quarterback that can't even run all over you like that? That's all they have.
Let me stop you there, because the one thing I will say about Alabama's defense over the years is it was always Nick Saban's defense, right? Yeah. So there wasn't this, I need to learn a new defense. Nick Saban's first year, we weren't great defensively. We just weren't. And we weren't great offensively. We weren't great at anything, really. And then you went into 2008 and you had a year under your belt, and the pattern matching schemes and everything else that Nick Saban ran, they got it under the belt. They could play a lot faster.
Right.
So that's kind of the inner dialogue that I keep having in my head, right? Like, are we dealing with guys that aren't able to do it, or are they just not playing at a speed we're used to because they don't really know what they're supposed to do? And here's how I feel about Kane Womack's scheme. He doesn't yet know how to defend a quarterback run, period. And you want to go back to, okay, he's had some good games and bad games. He had a good game against Carson Beck. Carson Beck ain't running. Had a good game against Garrett Nussmeier. Garrett Nussmeier ain't going nowhere. He's had good games along the lines, but you look at the ones that you've struggled in, quarterback run. I mean, go all the way back to South Florida. There were times we couldn't stop South Florida running the ball.
That's right.
With the quarterback run. You had a good game against Wisconsin. Guess what? That quarterback wasn't going nowhere.
Right.
So I just think that there has to be some inner dialogue inside this locker room. Maybe there's something they don't understand about the +1 and their defensive fits that, that you need to change, or that, the players need to understand better. But I got news for you. You want to talk about being schemed up and having a +1, defensively, you're going to see it from Auburn, because I guarantee you that what they just did with Jackson Arnold running for 150 yards is going to be duplicated this weekend, and you better be able to get off the field, or it's going to be a long night.
Well, final thought on the show is that it is the Iron Bowl, and Auburn's players doing exactly what I love them doing, and that's talking a gang of shit. And to me, it's the perfect remedy for a team that played a less than lackluster performance last time, because the one thing that you don't want is a team you're better than talking about you. So I think it could come at a better time. I'm reading some of these comments. I sent you one, which is it's hilarious to me. Like, and I always wonder, like when DeMarcus Riddick is saying Ryan Williams, he ain't no big time player to me. I will not lose to Bama while I'm here. Hey, look, man, put that up on the board. When you need to find that little bit extra. Hey, there it is for you. And there's been a bunch of that stuff coming out of that locker room.
I keep having that Conor McGregor meme where he's in the press conference and he says, who's that guy? Who's that guy? No, man. And that's the thing is listen, I think there was one in our recruiting class. I can't remember if it was Lorenzo Washington, RIP, or Brandon Dedrick or Brandon Fanny, one of the guys that were in my recruiting class. It was like, we're going to win a national title. Not going to lose to Auburn while I'm here. And it was like, bro, I don't even know if you'll, in the end, when the game came around, I was like, I don't even know if you'll see snaps in this game. You know what I mean? Like, it always common. That's exactly why Saban never let freshmen talk to the media, man. So it is what it is. I think that hopefully Bryant Denny is absolutely on fire on Saturday night. And to me, that's the difference in this game is when you can really put your imprint as a program, as a school, as a fan base on the Iron Bowl. That's what it's all about. I will just leave you with this. It's rivalry weekend. I will not be gambling on football, and anything can happen specifically in this game. And we've seen it a number of times. We saw an outmatched Auburn team last year do exactly what Oklahoma just did to Jalen Milroe and force him, into bad situation after bad situation. It's going to happen again. And I don't want it to get to a 4th and 31. You better find a way to get vertical with your running backs and find something complementary. And here's an idea, Mick. Let's take this game out of Jalen Milroe's hands. Let's offensively, we know Elijah Pritchett's an issue, right? We know Jalen Milroe can't read the zone read for whatever reason. Maybe he's selfish with the ball. Let's take this game out of his hands. Let's run the ball downhill. Let's not worry about the box count. Let's get a push up front with Booker and Proctor and some double teams. Let's let these running backs cut off of that and, do some things we need to in the passing game. Let's go from there. All right. But that's going to be my thought for the next couple of days is how can Bama take this game out of Jalen Milroe's hand and not require him to win it by himself? We know that story. We've seen it play out time and time again. 4 times in the last, 12 games that we've seen it. That's just not going to be possible all the time. So let's grow as a program, I think, in this moment. And I think Kalen DeBoer, a lot is going to be on his plate this week as you kind of navigate it, because make no mistake, Auburn wants this one, and you can hear it coming out of their locker room. So we'll see what that reaction looks like.
Guys, let me remind you, our show and our channel is brought to you by mybookie.ag. Use the promo code next round for a 300% deposit bonus for the casino. That includes 50 free spins using the promo code next round. So take advantage of that. You're at the in-laws. Maybe you don't like your mother-in-law. Maybe you don't like your father-in-law. Maybe the kids are driving you nuts. You're looking for something to do. mybookie.ag. I'm going to save you. You win some big money while you're sitting there trying to ignore everyone. You want to watch football, and yet they're watching some parade in New York. Hey, mybookie.ag's got you covered. 300% bonus deposit for the casino, 50 free spins using that promo code next round. Like, subscribe, thumbs up to covercrimson.com. That's Mike Johnson. I'm Mick Gillispie. Any final thoughts, Mike, before we bid everyone a happy Thanksgiving?
Hey, man, it's rivalry weekend. Take the under. How about that? We'll put a game plan together later in the week, Mick. Roll Tide, buddy.
Get back together soon, and we'll talk Alabama and Auburn. Roll Tide.